Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Adobe Live. My name is Anna McNaught, and I'm your host today. And today I am joined by Simi Jois. Welcome, Simi. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Anna. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here with us. Your work is absolutely stunning. We're going to take a quick look at that in a few minutes here. But in the meantime, welcome everyone to the chat. Hello, Robert. Hello, Cody. Hello, Andrea. Welcome, everyone. So nice to have you all here with us today. You're going to be learning a lot from Simi. Her work tells a magical story and has so much emotion, and her use of lighting is incredible. So I'm very excited to see what you have in store for us today. And I'm going to just pass it right on over to you so that you can show a little bit of your portfolio if you want to start there, or Instagram. I see you have that up, whatever you would prefer.
Sure. This is my Instagram account, Culinary Optics. If you want to follow me there, you can keep in touch on Instagram. This is my portfolio, and it's simijois.com. Images here, and I've been working on a very interesting project with Adobe. I won a grant from them, and creating images from culture and my culture, which is Asian Indian, and just have been creating images for them, which is available on Stock. This is my other Stock portfolio with Adobe, which is the premium collection. And yes.
Amazing. It's so beautiful. Like your colors and use of lighting, as I was saying offline, is just phenomenal.
Thank you so much, Anne.
Yeah. Beautiful. So Simi's portfolio is getting shared in the chat right now. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to come over to behance.net/Adobe Live so you can not only join in on the chat, but also be able to check out Simi's Instagram as well as her Behance page and her portfolio. So beautiful. And you said, you told me offline that you've only been shooting for about 10 years, right?
Yes.
Wow. Seems like you've learned a lot.
My mother is an artist, so I've always dabbled with color, paints, light and shade at home, and all the talk about art. My sister is an artist too. So I guess there's something that was there in me, which was waiting to find expression.
Definitely. Yeah. And how did you get into food photography?
So I was always very fond of cooking. I started a blog, and then I started taking pictures for the blog, and I was like, wait a minute, why is there the pictures look so terrible, but the food tastes so good. And I started exploring as to how it should be easy. The dish looks good, you have a camera, take a picture, put it on the blog. It wasn't that way. It was terrible pictures. So I started self-study. I started studying it. And since I've always been into art, coming from that kind of a background, I said, okay, I started reading about colors, composition, and then it just, I fell in love with it. And this was my calling. Just never turned back or looked back after that, because this is where, I find my storytelling happening.
Yeah, so incredible. Everyone's saying that they're hungry now, that they need to get lunch, that they love food photography. So it's going to be a good stream. Make sure you have something to eat while we're watching this, because otherwise you guys are definitely going to be very hungry.
I know.
I luckily ate lunch right before this, so I'm feeling good, but you might want to all go grab a snack.
Or some coffee.
Yeah, coffee and a snack, perfect combo. So beautiful. Awesome. So all of these are on Adobe Stock. So
yes,
if you're looking for some good food photography, you all know where to find it now. Wow, I love the coffee shots. Those are beautiful. Pomegranate. These are great. Like really, really good to know that these are available in stock to use.
And this is the latest collection, which is Culture, Taste of Heritage.
Okay.
This is more traditional pictures coming from my heritage, and it has been so much fun working on this project. It's part of the Artist Development Fund, and that's the grant I won from Adobe. And
that's super cool.
Yeah, it has been just just enjoyed and grown so much doing this project.
Yeah, it's stunning.
It's still work in progress though.
It's so cool.
Yeah,
I love seeing the fresh ginger too. I actually saw like actual fresh ginger for the first time this summer, and then had it, and it was so much better than what you buy in the store. It was incredible.
That's true.
Yeah, these are gorgeous.
Let me know when you want to dive in, and then
whenever you're ready. If you want to show a little bit more
sure.
Of your portfolio too. And I know you had a little presentation, but it's totally up to you whenever you're ready to get started.
Sure. So these are all about, then I'll show you all my portfolio, my website. This is simijois.com. I don't have many images here, but some of my favorite that I grew with and that I've grown, those have taught me something. So, and this is it. And there are many tabs out here on my portfolio. We have still life, culture, and then my published work and stock images.
So gorgeous. And you've been published often, right?
Yes, in fact, I just got published in Click magazine, fall issue. And yeah, I haven't had time to upload it here, but I'll do it in a day or two. So, and I've worked for books and for magazines. So some of my work is right here.
That's really cool. I feel like your work so perfectly lends itself to magazines and books, and it's awesome.
Thank you. And now we can dive in.
Awesome.
And let me share this. And the reason I just put 2 or 3 slides together. And the reason I did was to give everyone a little bit of insight or a peek into my head, what I'm thinking when I'm taking these pictures. And I think it's so much more important to understand the emotion, to understand the storytelling behind the story. We often give so much importance to the tech aspect, the specs, the tech, the shutter speed, or what tool in Photoshop. But we forget that what is the story. So I have been fortunate to have been born in an artist family. So for me, every picture starts with a story, more than, what lens did I use or what tool in Photoshop. So this really resonates with me. A true photograph need not be explained, nor can it be contained in words, which I think is so appropriate because that's what it is. It evokes something in you, and sometimes we don't even understand what is it that we're staring at that we are so drawn to. And this is another one by Adams, which I really love. All art is a vision, penetrating the illusion of reality. And photography is one form of this vision and revelation, which is so true because we are really making stories and trying to express those in vision. And that is what food photography and still life photography is all about. Unlike where you are documenting something and accuracy is required, here you can dare to dream. And you can, a rose may not be a rose, and bunch of potatoes may be something else. It can be humor, it can be something in-depth. It's just a choice, the artist makes. So my process is, I really don't look at post-processing and photography as separate. I look at it as one big process that lends to my vision becoming, breathe into life and, come from inside of me to my camera and then onto Photoshop. So I don't consider myself either a retoucher nor a photographer. I've always considered myself to be able to be an expressive visual storyteller. So that's what my process is. Some images may be more processed than the other, post-processed than the others, and some may not even be, slightly processed. It all depends on how much I can capture in camera and how much I know that I'll need to work on Photoshop. And the reason I say that is a lot of people mistake Photoshop to be a tool where you are enhancing your pictures. You are, hiding something, or you are trying to trick the viewer. It really is not a tool. To me, that's not the tool. It's a tool of storytelling. It's my extension of my lens. It's an extension. It's like the little brush tweak I can't do with my lens, I'll do it with Photoshop. And that's how I look at it, as such a powerful tool to, narrate my stories and to bring it to vision. So today we will be doing a few process of Moody images, and everyone loves Moody, dark Moody, the pop of color there. And through the course of today and tomorrow, we'll be doing some Airy images. Today, I think I'll even do a couple of photo focus stacking and how I use focus stacking. And tomorrow we'll wrap up with how I use Photoshop, what my camera can't do. So say I have a beautiful hibiscus flower and I have taken a picture of it, and I come back in after a few days, I'm looking at the camera, I've downloaded it, and I'm like, I don't like the backdrop. I want it to be painterly, but the flower has long dried out. So what do I do now? How do I change it to my vision? So that's something we'll do tomorrow. Let's hop into Photoshop. Let me stop share and start share again. So right here, we're going to start with, I'm going to start with something really light, and then we build on as we go. So that, so when I take my images, all my images are shot in RAW, and I process them in RAW. So when the image will open up, it will open up in Camera Raw. And a lot of my students, when I do my workshop, ask me, we took a picture in Camera Raw and then we took a picture in JPEG. The JPEG looks much better than the RAW. Now, the reason is because the camera is really, the software in the camera is making the changes to give you the JPEG. So it doesn't collect the exact data what you have shot like a RAW image is. So that's the reason I like to shoot in RAW, because everything is captured. So even when I'm doing Moody, I don't go extreme black and cover this and make it dead pixels, because I want to maintain and I want to keep the pixels and I want to gather as much data as possible. And that's when, Photoshop comes handy, because I can always add that depth and that darkness in Photoshop rather than doing it in camera, because I don't want to lose any data and I want to get as much data as, as I can. And please feel free to ask any questions as we go ahead, and make any comments, or do you want me to use any specific tool? Let me know if I do, because I'm not, an expert in Photoshop, but I try to do my best. So now we have this raw image. It's opened in Camera Raw in Photoshop, and that's the window that opens when we open a raw image via Photoshop. Now, what I'm going to use here is, right here, I see it's pretty dark here. And I feel the light here is a little more yellow. And the reason is because it has a yellow cutting board. So there's some reflection going on because the sun was right here. So I need some more light here. So right as I see this image, I see all of these things that are, glaring at me that needs attention. So here I use the masking tool, which is new for this version of Photoshop. They used to have, I think they used to have Camera Raw filter here. So I take the brush and I just use the left curly bracket to reduce the size of the brush, and I paint over all the areas that I think need a little more light. I can do, basically I can do anything after I paint, and I'll show you how. I really think there should be a little more light here and maybe a little more here. So now any of these tools can be used, and whatever I'll do here will be reflected here. So I'm adding more light, as you can see. If I wanted to really darken it, I could do that. And we don't want to do that, so I add more light here, and I like that. And so I want to go back here and add some more. I can always do that.
Quick question for you. So are you, when you're editing your images, are you often doing them in Photoshop or this Camera Raw process, or do you also do it in Lightroom?
I always do it in Lightroom, in Photoshop, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Because that's my, I don't know, I just love Photoshop, and I'm just so comfortable with it. And everything I need is right here.
I feel that.
Yes, yes.
Big fan of Photoshop.
Me too, big fan, yeah. So now the other fun part is, now you have a little blue pencil kind of a thing here. You can move it here and the whole light can move. So you literally can create, you know, you can literally create light there. And I thought that was really cool. I saw this last week because this is a new release. And I was like, I love this because I can do this. It'll look like something is reflecting. So right here, you see how different your story can become with just one tool. So I place it back here because the reason why is I don't like this white patch here. So I'm going to make sure it's all inside because I like this here. Now I want to change the white balance just in this area because everything else looks perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new mask right here. Again, take the brush, again, brush here. And the first one looks quite okay. So I'm not going to take that, just this much. And then I'm going to go down and just make it a little cooler. Right here, I feel it looks perfect. So I'll show you again. This was what it originally looked like, pretty yellow. I'm going to remove this for a minute. It's pretty yellow. And we go back here, make it cooler. And now this is pretty much what I do in RAW. Now, if I do want to do some more things, I'll probably, you know, increase exposure if I want to, but that's really not something I want to do because I want it to be moody. Maybe a little bit, not a whole lot. Increase the contrast, not really. So you can do a lot here. You can do your highlights, you can do your shadows, you can increase the whites, decrease the whites, decrease the whites here. The garlic will become a little darker. Let's play around with the garlic here. So now let's see this. I love the garlic, but I would, you know, when I was photographing this, it had so much character. When I broke it, I felt, wow, this looks amazing. But after taking the picture, I feel that, you know, we can do more here. So let's try that. Again, let me go back to masking. Let me create a new mask. Again, let me use the brush tool. Now I'm going to paint it and let's see what we can do here. I love the wrinkly old texture of it because it's not a fresh garlic. It was lying in my pantry for a bit. So, and let me go here, down here, go into textures, the effects. So I increase the textures here. I increase the clarity here. And, you know, right now the wrinkles are all showing up. And I'll probably reduce the light a little bit. So all the pinks start showing up. So now remember this garlic. We'll go back to it and bring out the whites in the main Photoshop screen. So now having done that, let's see how it looks. I like it. Then let's open the image in Photoshop. Now we have this image open in Photoshop. Now the first thing that I see that I really want to work on is this little border here. You can see the floor that it was placed on, and then you see that unnecessary leaf, just hanging there. So those are the two things that I'm going to work on. So just right click, duplicate layer. You should always name your layers. That's a good, that's a good habit to have, because then when you come back to Photoshop, you know what you've done. And if you want to hide any one of those layers, you can hide them. I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to spot heal them. So I'm going to just call them spot heal. I'm going to say, okay. So this is the layer on which spot healing is going to happen. That's a little band-aid here. So I click on it and reduce the brush size with the left curly bracket and go right here. Now this is the history tab that need not be there. And then here, it's gone. Any extra marks here or cleaned up. So now you can see, you can disable this layer by just clicking on the I button here and enable it here. So now I have this image. Now I want to make it really more moody. But before I do that, especially for stock, what happens is any kind of lettering there is, it becomes, if it's associated with a brand, then you really can't submit on stock images. So you need to remove that. I really like it because it adds to the character, but if I'm submitting this to stock, I won't be able to do that. And that's the reason I do it on a new layer. And I just say spot heal 2. So that I know that if I want this layer to be there for my portfolio, I'll keep it. For Photoshop, I can just, disable it. So again, I go back to spot heal, reduce, and here, just a bit of patience. I know sometimes spot heal can have a mind of its own, and it's a great tool. But remember, when you're painting and you're doing some delicate work on a canvas, you don't want to, you don't rush it, and then you don't, you just go delicately. Here you go. It looks great.
Yeah.
So now I think it's slightly yellow here, and I'm not that happy with it. I want it to be a little more dull yellow. So I'm going to duplicate the layer here and call it Desaturate. There are a couple of ways to do it. I'll just touch upon the simple way. I'm sure through the course of these 2 days, we'll learn other ways to do it as well. So here is your Dodge Burn tool. Right click, you'll find the sponge tool. You have saturation. So you can choose desaturate here. You have between 0 to 100. I'll stay somewhere around the 50 range. Take a small brush and just go a little bit desaturate, because I don't want anything else to pop. Yes, Anne?
Ferry is asking if you ever print any of your photos, and if you do, what's kind of your go-to size?
So, I do print a lot of my pictures, especially, some of my friends, they ask me, or some people buy my pictures to put it in their home. There is no really go-to size. I have like huge ones in my dining room that are there. So I look at the size, and if you go here, you do image size right here. And if you convert that into inches, it'll tell you I won't go beyond that.
Okay.
Because for this resolution, that is the best size that can be. Not that if you go, beyond it, it's going to be fuzzy, but still, if you want a tack sharp, beautiful image, I think 20 inches by 13 is the max you can go with my camera. So that's the max I go when I'm printing it. But anything lower, anything that you really want. So now, as you see, that yellowness has gone, that brightness has gone, and there's a dull oldness to this. Now that really lends to the picture. I also see here a small little yellow dot that bothers me. So I'm going to do a spot heal here as well. That will be the last spot heal. So I'll call it 3. And I had not noticed it before, but just tiny. That's it, it's gone. And probably here as well. Now we did speak that we will, edit the garlic and we'll add some shine to it. So let me do that. Again, right click, duplicate layer, name the layer as Dodge because that's the brush I'm going to use. Again, it's the same brush as the sponge. Right click, you find the Dodge. Now in Dodge, you'll have 3. You can work on shadows, add light to the shadows, add light to the midtones, and add light to the highlights. So I pick the midtones here and I keep it at 50. Now the brush is too big. Then I reduce it by the right curly bracket or just right click and reduce the brush. So now after I did that, I reduce it furthermore and I just go and, that's where I think my painting backdrop comes. And you may ask me, why did you have to darken it and then you're adding light to it? So I'm not adding light everywhere. I'm just adding that shine and that light. And when you have enlarged it here, it may not show as much, but it'll really add that drama. Now, even on some of these, I'm going to increase the highlights. Even though I'm not using the highlight, I'm using midtones. I prefer using midtones than highlights because I have really worked on them. It really shows where the light is coming from. And here, it's important to understand what was your light source. So you can be adding light this side when the light source is here. So this is when, your photography is really marrying into what you're doing in Photoshop. So what you're basically doing is enhancing what you've already taken picture of. There you go. I love this. It's suddenly, you can see the pop here. So because I love this pop happening, I'm going to do the same thing to these guys. I'm going to increase the brush size and just a little bit as though I'm painting and, just make it a little more and just see that line, that little curve there just come alive. So much better, right? And while I'm at here, I'm going to do the same thing here because it's like the light is almost like kissing the subject. So here you go. And here when I come, I see the pink of the onion can really marry into the pink of the garlic. They're making that connection. So what do? I create another layer and I call it Saturate. And less is more because Saturate, you can really go overboard. So right click, sponge. We had desaturate, we change it to saturate. 48 is fine. Reduce the brush size by right clicking or by using the curly bracket. And then, I'm going to increase that red there. I love that.
Yeah.
So it's just a hint of it. It's not a whole lot. So now I like all this, but I like it more moody.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make it more moody and I'm going to right click and call it burn. And
quick question for you from the chat. Sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
Carol is wondering, she says all those layers must really increase the file size. Have you ever used 50% gray layer on overlay to make the dodge and burn changes?
You know what? I try to keep my process as small as possible, as less I have to do. I don't mind huge file sizes because I'm always editing 500, 600 image for clients. And, so right. I'm eating up terabytes by the minute. So I don't mind it, but that's a very good, a lot of people do that. And that's a very good, workflow for some people. For me, it's like, don't ask me to do more work is what is my mantra all the time.
Right. So, yeah. I think everyone kind of has their own method and process. And like I always say on every stream, there's a million ways to do the same thing in Photoshop and everyone has their own unique method. And I think that's the beauty of it.
Exactly, exactly. So now, okay, we go back to the burn tool. Let me delete that because I started that without explaining to you all what I'm doing. And when I go back to the burn tool here, I have either I can do midtones or I can do shadows. Highlights is not something I want to do here. The backdrop is pretty matty. So I'm going to keep it to midtones, keep it at around maybe 60. And then with a little brush, just bring in that black darkness here. And just a little to make it pop, to direct the light here. The reason I do it is I'm really now directing the light here and into here, so the eyes go right there. The reason for this is the eyes go right there. Here you go. After having done that, I see that this little piece of ginger here looks rather dull. So I have a choice of going back to Camera Raw and painting that and adding, or I can just do dodge again and just add color to it. Now, I don't encourage dodge as much because sometimes when you have a lot of details, dodge tends to not bring those details alive. But here, since it's not like the main hero, I'll just use that. Just added a little more light and there you go. That's perfect. And here is your image now. Show you all how that looks. And I think that looks great. So
good.
Just going back and seeing where we started from, we had imported this image from Camera Raw, and then we worked on the onions, then we worked on the dodge, we did saturate, and this is the final image.
Amazing.
So that's one of them. I'll quickly save it as already done. I like to save it in Photoshop. Do that and open the next image. The next one I'll go a little quickly because it's pretty much a repeat of what we did here. And the reason I picked this picture was that sometimes there is not much to edit. Just because we have a tool doesn't necessarily mean we have to use it. It's just that we have something to work with. Now, I really like this picture because the details are really, it's like you can see every single detail in this picture. And that's the reason I love it. The only thing right when I see it is I want to make this darker. I want to make this pop a lot more because this is dry turmeric root, and it has great textures, but it's really not, coming alive. So for that, and I want to saturate this, the cumin, the star anise, and the cloves here because I feel it looks a little dull. So that's my vision for Photoshop. So I start with masking. Take the brush, and the first thing I'm going to do is do the turmeric. The light is perfect here, so I'm not going to mess up with the exposure. All I'm going to do is add more texture and clarity. And sometimes, it's good to use dehaze. There is no haze there, but just adding that brings the texture live. So here you go. Now create a new mask brush, and if we I wanted to add a little more saturation here, which I'm going to do right here because everything is nicely saturated and instantly you see it comes alive, right? Now, another mask brush, and increase the brush size by right arrow, curly bracket, and here you go. And here I'm going to, especially this portion, I'm going to decrease the exposure. See, so now it's really popping. Now it's really, the images begins to pop because it's like a brush, it's like almost like painting.
Yeah.
So I think this looks great. Open it in
beautiful
Photoshop, And that's the vision I have when I'm working, even when I'm photographing. So sometimes when I'm photographing and I don't want to do a lot of editing, I'll just put black cards here so that you have nice shadow here. But sometimes I don't do that. I'm like, okay, you know, I'll just do that. Now, right here, I see I'm not that crazy about, you know, I think the highlight is a way too much, because the way our eyes work, we see the color red first because it has the shortest wavelength. And we see the brightest color first because it reaches the iris, you know, our eyes first. So I don't want this to be reached the eye first and your eye drawn to it. So I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to call it highlight, because I'm going to try to remove it. So two ways of doing it again. I take the burn tool, I take highlights here, and this time I'm going to go really push it to say 100. Reduce the brush and go here and see what happens. Yeah, I like that. That's one way of doing it. So now we don't have it so much. It's there because there's light, but it's not obvious. Really like that.
Yeah.
But the other way of doing it could also be, if it's sometimes, you know, it's going to be, what tool is this? I keep forgetting the name. This is the spot healing. So the other one is, I'm going to rename it spot healing. And again, enlarge the image so that you have the area to work on. Take little by little, increase the brush size, and you know, you'll see it change. So either one of the tools work. This is more work. I really like the way it is, so I may not even do this, but I'm just showing you all what you can do. So I'm going to disable this layer. So now I see that I really like the way the light is playing, but you know, it's still choppy. It's not fine work. So here you can see some light coming in, and then you can see this corner, which I don't like because there are too many little corners that's sticking out in the picture. So I'm going to burn them all. So I'm going to take the burn tool, and this time I'm going to use shadows. Shadows really adds dark shadow to the image, and I'm going to keep it at say 40. And sorry. Yeah, so I take this, increase the brush size, and I go here. And I don't like and here I don't really rub it. I just press it with the mouse once. So that adds the little texture, and that, you know, odd edges disappear. I go back here and I make it midtones, and then I add the midtones here. I don't want to make it too dark here. So here you go. I like that. And here also I feel it's choppy light. I'm going to take the same burn tool, reduce the brush size, and just go here so that it's not choppy. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Now you can see it's talking more, but I do see a little highlight here. Go back, create a new layer, and call it spot healing. I'm going to remove that highlight altogether because I don't think that's necessary there. The light is coming from here. Doesn't make a sense to have highlight here. So that's it. Sometimes you need to go over it multiple times for it to. So this is it. So we started with this. We already had done quite a bit in Photoshop. And then just adding shadows just pops the image.
Yeah.
So again, I'm going to save it.
Marsha is saying, wouldn't you do the highlight in camera raw? I guess that would be a personal choice again, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The good thing about Photoshop is you can do it a million ways, literally.
Right.
And Sometimes I'll just do it in Camera Raw. Sometimes I'll come back here and do it. Sometimes I'll take it back to Camera Raw. You can even take this back to Camera Raw and work on it. It's not like once Camera Raw is shut off, you can't. So say you want to really work more on this image, I just create a mask, just add a little more light into all this, you know, a little more texture, light. So now just it brightens it even more. So there is really saturated a little more because it's all earthy tones. So you can really do that, increase the texture and clarity. So here you go. It pops even more.
Yeah.
So there is, you can just sit with it. And that's really how I learned Photoshop. I would sit with an image and just play around, just open something random and say, okay, let's see what happens. And so you can, you know, endless possibilities, or you can use the dodge. And I don't like to use dodge as much to bring in the lights because it doesn't really, it's not like adding the exposure. It's more like there's a little whiteness to it, you know, it adds white color to it. And when you're painting, yeah. And when you're painting, say you're painting a rich tone of red, you want to add white to it, you know, so just keep that in mind. So now let's open the third image for today. And this is basically to show you all how, you know, I'm just going to use one tool in Photoshop, not a whole lot. And you'll see how the image pops. So when I shot this, I was very happy with how the clarity was, especially here, how much the camera had captured. You know, I was like really happy with it. Now, if I really need to stretch that in Photoshop and really showcase that it was such fine detail was shot by the camera, again, I go back here, not many tools I'm going to use in this picture. I'm going to paint all of this because nothing else I want that, you know, nothing else I want to work on in this image other than this. And I'm going to increase the texture. And you see here how it's just coming alive, you know?
Yeah, such
increase the clarity. So right here, that's it. So sometimes just less is more. And that's why each picture, and I'm going to do a little bit of dehaze because, so now I'll go back and I'll show you how it was. So this is how it was. And then look at that.
So cool. Wow.
So it really, you can really like count the grains there. So that's it. I don't think this image needs anything else other than what I did, because everything else, maybe there's a slight tilt, and that's a great way to remove the tilt. Use the crop button. First create a new layer and say straighten, and then you use the crop button and go to the edge of it, and here you go, slightly turn it straight. So, and that's it. I won't do anything else here. The only thing probably I would change is I don't like this line here because it's coming in the way. So I'm going to burn that so it blends with the backdrop. So just eye for detail.
Yeah.
You know, when you're doing, very important. And also, I would not do this. I would do it in camera perfection, but I didn't have a big enough board. So those are, you know, the genuine issues we all run. And I'm going to increase that to 80, 90, and yeah, there we go. You know, then you're literally like painting it. So
yeah,
it doesn't show as much. Blending in. And then just because it was so dark, make other things darker. That's it.
So cool. So simple and like just makes such a big impact. I love that photo so much.
Yeah, so it's just like it brings to life all the thing. It brings to life the dance of the flower. Yeah. And that was, you know, that was my vision when I was photographing it, the light and the flower just dancing with each other.
Yeah.
So now, let's see. Now I really am excited to do this one, because the vision behind images like this is I like to make it look like as though it's painterly, as though, you know, someone painted it, not like a photograph. And I've always loved to do that in my images, because I come from that backdrop, and, you know, my mother is an artist. So I've always loved to make images look like they're paintings.
Yeah.
So I really love the yellow and blue complementary colors arranged, light coming from this side. There's a mirror this side, so to add a little light here, nice shadows. But right when I see it, I don't like this line. I don't like this line. And when I was shooting it, I knew it, because I had two boards. One was straight and one was like this. So I didn't have boards of the same color. So I need to change that. Then I think the whole image, I find it a little excessively saturated. So I'm going to right now first reduce the saturation. So right here, reduce it a bit, and you see the difference it makes. You know, it has that orange kind of a hue. Yeah. And when I reduce it just a little bit, you know, that's gone. So now when I see this, I love the details here, but that's really not showing in the image. So I'm going to mask it with a brush, and just this much. And as you see here, I'm going to increase the texture, increase the clarity. And I think that's too much. This should be good. That's it. Probably do that to this leaf as well, because I love those veins there. So here you go. I love that. Now I'm going to take it into the main Photoshop screen. Now here, what I'm going to do the magic just with dodge and burn, and probably use a paintbrush. So let's see. Let's start with burn. So I'm going to start with burn. And the reason I start with burn first is I like to create the moodiness first, and then bring in the light if light is not enough. So I take the burn tool, brush, mid-tones, make it to 65, 70. And the light is coming from here. So I'm going to add shadows here. You know, just add that shadow here. And you can see the depth of the image increasing, you know?
Yeah, it looks so much better.
Yeah, depth increasing, and then a little more here. It looks like a little more here. That's it. So you have a little light there. And then I'm going to go back to here, go with shadows, reduce the brush intensity to 30%, and really make this dark. So it's just playing with it, you know, it's like having fun with it without getting your hands dirty with paint. So here, I love this, but I don't like this little blob here. And what do? I don't want to undo the whole thing. So I create a mask, add a layer mask. This is black, this is white, black. So I pick the black part of it. I take the opacity to 100%, increase the brush size, and I clean it up. I feel, you know, I like it, but I need a little bit of darkness there. So I change it to white, decrease it to 22. So I bring in a little more here. So it's basically, it's like these are the layers of layers you have, and the mask is like a tracing paper. So you can bring out from this, you know, from underneath it, whatever you want. The black brings it out, the white really hides it. So here you go. And I really like that. Now I love everything, except I want a little more light and drama here. And I don't like the line. We got rid of the line here when we used the burn tool, but we couldn't do that here. I'm going to teach you something really cool. You do the duplicate layer and you say brush, or you call it paint. Let's paint it. You know, who said we can't be real painters? Now you take the color and you go to the darker. You always pick the darker one. You pick the darker one. Maybe I'll add a little blue to it because it is blue. Then you take the brush. 22 is perfect, and you just add color to it. So the line is there. It's not like it's not there, but it's not a whole lot. It's not, you know, staring at your face. Again, I think it's way too much, so I'm going to mask it. Use the same brush, use black, make it maybe 36% and remove a little bit. So it's there and it's not there. It's not like your eye will go there.
Yeah, that's much better.
Yeah, here. So it's not that much. And here as well, I'm going to reduce. This is perfect. Now we bring in the light. So again, you can do it either you take it back to camera raw and brush it, or we can do both and see how each one of them works. So let's take the dodge tool. Again, the light is from here and it's falling here. So let's do that. Let's bring that light here, falling here. You see instantly there's that
huge
pop.
Yeah,
right?
That is like the game changer right there.
Yes. So now you could do this here or take it to camera raw. So let's disable this here.
We have a few questions for you from the chat. You don't have to answer these right now because they're more about tips, but Vikram asks any tips about soup photography and juice, and then maybe one you could answer right now. How do you prefer the background against food?
Sure. So now here again, I'll finish this and I'll get to the questions. Here again, paint. You know, we are artists, so use that. And you see my strokes are never pronounced. It's just following the light that's already there here. So here was with the dodge tool. Here is with the camera. Either one, you know, either one.
Yeah.
And that's it, you know. Maybe
amazing.
If I were who I am, I like to do a little more here. Oh, that is not the right brush. And how did I know that? Because see, the textures are coming alive. That's what happens when you use shadows. So how do you delete that? Just go here to history, delete. Or you can delete that layer. So now I don't like the texture. So I'm going to change it to midtones and add more light and add more shadow here. So now it's really popping now. So as you can see, we started with quite a bland looking picture. Then we created shadows and lights and just created magic with it.
Wow. What a difference.
So now when I said that I already have in mind when I'm shooting a picture what I'm going to do in Photoshop, this is what it means. So when I was shooting this, I literally knew that I'm going to bring in the shadows in Photoshop. I'm going to make it look like a painting. I'm going to just make the, you know, lines pop and the lemon pop and not have, you know, it look like it's just sitting there with a diffuse background. Now to answer the question, I think the one that I think someone asked, how do I pick the background? Am I correct?
Yes. How do you, I guess, or how do you prefer the background against the food? I don't know if that means like color wise or picking a background maybe.
So yes, color, texture, everything comes into play. Everything is decided. There's no accident when you are shooting still life. It's all pre-decided based on what is the story. Now here the story was a still life that I wanted to look like a painting. So obviously I took a canvas and I have painted these myself. So these canvas have been painted by myself, and I do strokes that will make the picture start looking like a painting. So they will be, as you see here, all the colors here, you will see paint strokes. So to make it look like a painting, so that's the vision behind it. So obviously I'll use something like this. In the previous image here, it was this beautiful tray because it's so rustic looking. And it just tells the story of the spice being an ancient, an ancient food, which has been used for years and years and thousands of years, right? So that's the story with the old tray here. If you go here, this is a rustic backdrop that I bought, which is absolutely beautiful, just to bring out the rustic, earthy element of the earth, because these are all mostly ginger. It grows under the ground, onions and garlic under the ground. So it's it brings out the earth element. So that's what you're thinking. And right off when you see a picture, you don't understand the story behind why something was picked. But if you really go, you are enhancing the hero always. You're always telling the story of the food through using the background. All the supporting players here, the backdrop, the cutting board, all add to the hero. So I hope that answers the question.
That's really cool. And I never thought of backgrounds that way. Oftentimes we just see backgrounds for still life as what looks cool or what helps enhance the colors. And I know how important storytelling is to you, as you mentioned. And I just love that you put that much consideration into the backgrounds and into what they mean, and like the ancientness of the tray and the earth tones for the other one. And this one that you said you hand painted this background. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes.
That's so incredible. And like all these little details that go into it, like really, really make these images what they are. And you can see this all coming together.
Yes. And it's all about, I think at the end of the day, are you having fun with it? Are you enjoying it? That's what is reflected in, especially art and photography. It shouldn't become a chore that, oh no, I have to paint the backdrops now. It just be a child and, and these are not expensive paints. These are just wall paint that I went into Home Depot and I picked them. It's like, they were lying on they're just lying on the shelf for $1. And little teeny weeny boxes. And I was like, picked up a bunch of gray and a bunch of blue, and I'm good. And just bought a scrap wood and painted on it.
That's awesome.
It. So not a whole lot. And just, take wet paint, and the way I like to do it is bring in textures. So put heavy paint on it, and just take a bounty roll, crush it, or take a burlap and just go dab, and you'll get all the textures. If you want to add color to the texture, just put burlap in white paint or a lighter color and just dab. That's it. So just being a child and exploring different medium through photography, even if it's like painting for the backdrop.
Yeah, that's so inspiring. I love that.
Thanks, Anne. What was the other question? Other two questions? I was so involved, it kind of slipped my mind.
Yeah, that's okay. The other question was about tips for soup photography and juice. So I'm assuming like any sort of liquid, which is can be very difficult to photograph. Do you have any tips on that?
Right. So when we go to juice photography, and I think I will have a juice tomorrow to work with. And so when I do juice photography, I really like backlight. And the reason I like backlight is because when you have your cup here with your juice and you have backlight, the light is really penetrating into the liquid, and especially if the liquid is transparent. So you get that transparent feel of the juice through, a backlight. It's really nice. I love it. For soups, so when I think of soups, I'm thinking of winter. I'm thinking of snowy days and cold autumn days, wet days, gray days. So it's like moody picture. So say you have a moody picture and then you have a hot bowl of soup. So side light, preferably. So something like this, that there's side light, a bowl of soup, there's darkness here. Darkness and, grayness is always associated with cold days. So something like that. So a side light is always good. I never really have fallen in love with front straight light that we use for portraiture as much, but I like the side light because it gives textures, and I like the backlight because it really makes the food look airy, transparent. And when you're thinking of drinks, you're always thinking summer, bright, and fun, and all of that. So keeping the emotions and story in mind, you start picking the colors, you start picking what kind of light. So everything depends on what you want to showcase.
So fascinating. I've never thought of food photography in that way. And I feel like my whole world has just opened up.
Thank you. There was one more question, right, Anne?
I think that was it. Yeah, just about the backgrounds and shooting liquids. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's good. If anyone has any questions or if I missed anything, please feel free to put it in the chat again so that I can feed them over to Simi.
And also, if I'm going too fast or if you want me to repeat something, please let me know. This is for you all, and it's I know it will be there, and a recording will be there, but here I am to explain again if something got missed. Please let me know. I'll be very happy to repeat.
Yes, let us know if there's anything you need repeated and we can go back to it.
So now, just to break the monotony a bit, I'm gonna skip these two pictures and go here to photo stacking, and then I'll come back to here because I really don't want to miss this. So I'm gonna go to this picture first and tell you what my vision is. So this picture was shot during Diwali. Diwali is a festival of light that we celebrate, and we light silver lamps or earthenware lamps. We have lots of sweets, and it's just a very festive festival that we celebrate. So here is it's like a I really can't translate what it is. Maybe like a funnel cake, which has like syrupy funnel cake, but really something more crunchy, juicy. And if you all haven't tried it, you should. It's called a jalebi, and go find an Indian store and get one, and you will thank me for it. So and it's made, and the juice syrup is made, you put real saffron in it, so it's got that hint of saffron flavor, and that's where the color is coming from.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Yeah, so sorry for making you all hungry, but had to give the little story of food here. So now this is an image which is quite traditional. It has it's called a matka, and it has a coconut, decorated coconut. It has mango leaves, which is traditionally Indian. It has a silver lamp, and then it has the jalebi, and with an earthenware, little diya here. What you call the lamp is called a diya. So now my vision for this was, I had these string lights behind, and I wanted that bokeh effect, but it was not enough for me. I thought it was rather weak. So I'm going to use photo stacking here. But before I do that, I see the image, I really like the clarity here, but I want this is the hero, obviously, to pop. So again, I'm going to mask it, and I'm going to brush it and make the hero literally a little more light. That's going to increase the highlight. And then I'm going to increase the texture and clarity. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. So now you see it just like popping, right?
Yeah, so good.
So that's popping here. I love the light. I love everything else except this little guy here, which I'm going to get rid of later. I like everything. I'm not crazy about these lines. We'll fix that. And then I open it. Now, before I do photo stacking, I'm going to fix the jalebi a little more. So I'm going to just call it the hero. So I'm working here on the hero. So now, when I'm painting, when I used to paint, to bring that subject out, we would increase the shadows That's exactly what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take the burn tool, take the midtones at 33 or 40, make the brush tiny, and go in that little crevices here and add shadow. So what I'm really doing is bringing the shape alive. Less is more. You don't want to make it dark black because that's not how it is. You're enhancing what is already there. So remember, that's why a good photograph always helps, because you need a strong background. You need a strong image to start with. And then, so now you see it's popping. See that?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
You see all
the
those
before
layers.
and after always is huge.
So see, it's literally, you can see all the layers now. Now yes, that looks good. Maybe a little more. Again, less is more. I don't want to do too much. And I have come here a little bit. I'm just going to ignore that for now. Now, the other thing I see here is this crack, but I really like it. It just shows it's mine, it's a home, and it's just, I just like it. So I'm going to leave it there. But I don't like this little earthenware lamp here peeking, because the viewer really can't tell what it is. So I'm going to remove that before I stack the pictures. I'm going to call it Spot Healing. And as you all know, is one of my favorite brushes because it's almost like magic. It's small enough. I use it and there, it's gone. And sometimes, I see some of my students get frustrated with spot healing. It's like, when you do it, it's like magic. When we do it, it's not. It's like, because you're doing this. You do that, it won't work. See what happened, right?
Yeah.
So just that delicate, just if you are painting somebody's eyes, you're not going to use a number 6 brush. You probably use a 0 or 1. So same way, just reduce the brush, go a little tiny there and do it. Now for the second image. When I shot this image, I knew it right away that I would need a lot of bokeh. So what I did was I shot this. And you all will love what will happen to the final image. And if someone would see this image, they would be like, okay, everything is blurred. Well, that's the point, right? Because it's the backdrop. Yeah. So I put it on manual focus, blurred it, and took a picture. So here we are. I don't do anything with it because I love the way it is. And I say, okay, and it opens here. Now for the magic, I'm going to take the drag and drag it out. Then drag it into this picture. Just drag it into this picture. So here you go. And it doesn't matter because the lower portion is not something that I really want to, I don't want to do this because I want it on the top portion. So that's where I do it. Keep it here. Actually, I like it like, where is it? Yeah, I like it like here, like this. And I'm going to minimize this because we don't need this right now. So now you have this as a layer. And remember we spoke about masking. So you bring a layer mask, and then what does black do? It reveals what's below it. So you take the brush, keep it at 100 because you really want to reveal all that is lost. And don't worry if I'm going fast and if some of you feel that, oh, this is too hard, I'm going to repeat it. And then, use it like a paint. So this is your lamp. You don't want to hide the lamp. That'll look awkward. And then, I don't like this red, too much red here. Maybe I'm going to reduce the opacity to 50 here, 49 here, make it white again, and just add a little bit here. Go back to black. See that? It's like suddenly it's become so festive. It looks like all this is kept in the backdrop. Now it looks perfect, but still the two images are not perfectly aligned because this is darker than this. So I come back to the previous layer. You can duplicate it right here. And then bring the burn tool, midtones, 50%, increase the brush size, right arrow, increase it. Now you're literally blending the two images, you know, so that the same tone is maintained. And both of them were shot in the same light, in the same setup. So you really don't see that, you know, that hue and colors are almost same. Now you see that it's perfect.
Yeah.
Now I really want to blend these two. You know, in my head, it's still two images. My head is not saying, I still know it's two images, and it kind of bothers me. And then also I want to reinforce the yellow here somewhere. So I come back to the spot healing layer, which was a copy. Let me change that. So I had created a copy of it. So I come back here, then I pick the color of this, which is also the color of the light here, and take the brush, make it large. And anyway, it's a fuzzy brush. So I'm going to reduce the opacity and just create as though there were light here, you know, as though there is refraction. When you see light playing, when you see, you know, light is refracted through the lens, sometimes it scatters, especially if you have a sunlight coming directly into the lens, you know, it's scattered and creates kind of a haze. So that's when, you know, your real knowledge of how light is playing comes into play. So it almost looks like there's a flame or something here, you know, and just to compensate just a little more here to add that balance. That's it. And here, another tip is, if you find this too overwhelming, you can reduce the opacity of the backdrop. So you have something going on in the backdrop, but you really can't see. See that? Oh yeah. So you could even do that. So you know, there's some dance of light going on, but it's not so pronounced. I personally like it like a little bit, yeah, maybe at 75. So this is how, you know, I use focus stacking to make it more creative, not just, you know, for bringing out the focus. So this is where we started. We made it more sharp. Then we added shadows to the hero. We worked on the hero, and you can see the hero is really popping. Then we did some spot healing. Then we didn't do this. Then we added the backdrop, and then we added the yellow light there to finally marry everything together. Yeah, so good. So this is, you know, one of the ways I use focus stacking, and just to understand light more, to understand how reflection happens, how refraction happens. If I even wanted to have a plexiglass here and reflect, that is just too much going on. So I removed that. So then you're talking about reflections. Then how do you Photoshop reflections? How do you play with those? There's endless possibilities. I always look at photography like Lego blocks, especially food photography. So say you have a bag of onions, you have a bag of garlic, and then you have 6 or 7 props, and you have 2 boards. You can place them in 100 ways with 100 different light. You can do a flat lay, you can place them in a bowl as a straight, you can do a 3/4, then you can change the light direction, you can take Moody, you can just play with it. And that's how I learned. I would just take 2 or 3 ingredients and take 4 or 5 props and try it 50 different ways. And then Photoshop was only after I figured out photography, after I learned it, just to enhance it and make my story even more authentic, or even more, you know, give a vision to it. The Photoshop is like, you know, it's that last dab of makeup. That's what I call it. You're fully dressed and you need that, you know, little necklace to make your look perfect. Yeah. That's what it is, you know, that's statement piece. That's the perfect analogy. Yeah. So any questions at this time?
Yeah, we have two actually. One was from Carol asking if you ever use curves instead of dodge and burn.
Yes, perfect. I love that questions. I do. And
Okay.
let's try that here. Let's try that here. So we have two layers here. One is this and one is that. So let's go here to curves. And I love curves because it just adds some kind of a drama and the sheen here. Now, since I'm only dealing with the dark, I want to make it a little darker. So I'm going to use this part of curves and just pull it a little bit, and you see how it plays. And maybe increase the light a little bit. That's it. Okay, perfect. Then I go and do the same thing here. Image, adjustment, curves, levels also do similar thing. So now I love this. A little, yeah, actually I love it more than dodge and burn. So here you go. That's it. And if you want to do it in levels, same thing, adjustment, levels. Here you go. That dark. So curves, level, dodge, burn, exposure, very similar tools to use, and there's no right or wrong. It's just how creative you express yourself.
Yeah. Awesome. And then one more question for you. Someone said they were interested in, let me just scroll back here. Learning more about the red rose pick and how you did that, whether it was with brushes, kind of like the dispersion effect that you have on the red rose.
So, maybe I'll bring out the red rose tomorrow. I don't have it in the folder and we can do that. All I did was, I think I have watercolor brushes that I have in Photoshop. And let's go to brushes here and I'll show you. Yeah, here they are. Watercolor brushes, and you can pick any color, and it's just like a watercolor, it gives like a painting effect. So like this is the brush. I'm just randomly putting it here, but so, and I always like to collect brushes, different kinds, so I can do more with them than just, what Photoshop allows us to. And as you all know, I just love painting. So this is, this is just like if you're doing something with paint right now. I don't know what I'll do with the splatters in this image, but you can do a whole lot. I'm planning to do like a hibiscus and put it on a different backdrop tomorrow. For that red rose, basically what I did was I shot that red rose, and that was by image behind the picture. When I was shooting it, I did a close-up and I did quite a bit of black which was negative space when I shot it. And then I picked the exact color of the rose and then tried different brushes where it looks like, you're painting it, or it looks like an explosion, or whatever you call it. For me, it was just the red of the color is so rich of the rose, it's just leaking into the black. It's, pouring itself into the black backdrop is what my image was. And I had it in mind when I was shooting it. So when that happens, you give enough space. You shoot it with a dark backdrop. You give that kind of a moody light. You do all those things. So that's why, when I say keep in mind your Photoshop tools as well when you're photographing, because it's so important. Like these two images, I knew exactly that I'm going to mix them and merge the two. So just easier to work with them. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's such a good tip to think about what your final edit's going to look like as you're actually shooting the image.
Yes. Any other questions, Anne?
Looks like that's it for now. You can keep on going.
Okay, perfect. Let's go now to, let's do another painterly image. And then if we have time, there's one more, how to remove clutter. If you have clutter in the image, then how to do that. So here is another image. which is just a bowl of fruit. And usually I do that with still life. I try to create more like a painting because again, that's my calling and that's what I love doing. So again, the fruits, a lot of details, water drops, red and black grapes, and just a very textured backdrop. This is a rustic board here of rust color, and I thought it just adds to that earthy red color. It just matches so well. And this is a different backdrop, so you can see that sharp line. We're going to get rid of that. Just going to create a moody and beautiful image. Right, to start with, I'm going to sharpen all of this, and the reason I do that is not because it's not because of technical perfection. Again, why you do what you do is most important. When you're photographing, everything boils down to what's your story. So when you see a picture, it's like when you see a painting and still life, and especially you see Dutch still life, everything is subdued, and then you have that pop, which is crisp, sharp, and popping with color. So it just enhances that. It's like you almost can touch it and feel it's real. So that's the idea behind doing all that. Again, masking tool, take a brush, and we're going to work on the grapes as well when we go. So not a whole lot the bottom, then increase the textures a bit and clarity a bit. And I love the way it's maybe a little bit of saturation, not a whole lot. We don't want it to make look like it's overdone. So having done that, now I'm going to do a new mask, and this time instead of using burn, we're going to do something right here. So I'm going to do brush, and I'm going to brush this side because I want it dark. And see here again, when I start doing backdrop, I start becoming a painter.
So cool.
So here I'm just doing a little dab, not much, and then I'm going to reduce it. So see, now this is what happens when you reduce the exposure. And this is the reason I like to use the burn tool, because it kind of becomes like blotchy, and the bright surfaces start to, literally pop. And the texture is a little too much for me. So I'm going to go back here, restart. And that's it. I'm not going to use, camera raw to create that. I'm still going to go back and use burn. And that is what happens with me. A lot of times I keep going back to burn because I feel it is like a layer of paint. You are literally adding that grayness and blackness to it and the diffusion to it. For here, I may not do that, but for the backdrop, I prefer burn than playing with exposure right in camera raw. So now you have this image open right here. I'm going to do, and as you all know, I like to first darken the image and then throw in the light. So here, okay, and take the burn tool, mid-tones 50, perfect. Now you saw how the shadows came alive in the camera raw, but see here now, it's even making those orange highlights dark, right? That's why I like it.
Yeah.
It's more natural. It's more, so it's what you're using. I love that. I really feel this light here is popping. So I'm going to reduce my brush and get, add burn to it. And they, it could be like this shadow falling from, here you go. Add a little more shadow here. Now that makes a lot of sense. Here too, I don't like that line showing because just reduce this. I don't like, oh, I love that now. Just see the difference. Now I'm going to use, here I will use dodge because I need to do fine work and I want to add that whiteness to it. So I'm going to go here, take the dodge brush, reduce the size, and literally go and work on the highlights. And what colors are highlights? It's always white. So that's the reason I pick this, and I'm going each one, brushing it. It's almost like I'm, it's being kissed by light. And here it's not so much. So a little bit here and a little bit here. And you see now, wow, it's begin to pop.
Yeah, looks so good.
And just maybe adding a little bit here, not a whole lot, to the edge of, that's it, just a little bit. That's it. Now, if I want to have a little more fun with it and say, okay, add a little more texture, I'm going to take it back in Camera Raw. So I'm going to create a duplicate layer, and I'm always in for short forms, and I'm going to call it CR, Camera Raw. Go back here and let's have a little more fun with this image. So now it's going to open in Camera Raw, hopefully. Oh, did it not? Sure. Sometimes with Zoom, it's choppy. So I want to add a little light here because this board had beautiful textures. So I'm going to take the brush tool again. You'll see me using almost the same tool and just a little bit of light. Yeah, that's it. Maybe a little more here. So that's it. That little texture of light,
Yeah.
Just making it look a more authentic and painting like, unlike, just not doing it. It's again, personal choice. So it's like, light is coming from here and probably it's just reflecting right here. If you want to add more shadows to the backdrop, go for it. Just play around with it. Make sure you do new layers. And the only reason why I like to do that is sometimes as artists, we just tend to overdo it, and then we are like, oh no. So you don't want to go here and delete one at a time. So say you want to bring in more shadows and just hide the whole, this lip of this part of the bowl. That's it. So here there's a difference. You have this and then you have this. And then say you feel, okay, a little more contrast. Sorry, that's the burn tool. Little more contrast and a little more pop. Again, that's the burn tool. Just go back here, use the dodge tool, increase the brush size. And as someone in the audience said, you can even use curves. Now everything here, I'm doing a little fast. I would do it on a new layer. Just now. It's just like the fruits are popping. Again, your choice. You like the bowl to be fully visible. You don't like it to be visible. Again, the reason why we do all this in Photoshop is like, suppose you had created this image and this was pitch dark here in your camera. You want to bring it back to life. You'll find a lot of pixelation there. You may not have a complete data read there. You may have a lot of data missing because it's so black that it was not, it was extreme dark black is captured as dead pixels, just like extreme white is captured as dead pixels. So there's no data there. So there's so much less data that you can't bring it out. So always you have the mathematical aspect of how photography works. How is data being recorded, right? How is red reacting to a color? All those are data recording. Are you using, if you use too yellow a light with red apples, they start looking kind of fuzzy, yellowish red. So you have to keep that in mind. You can't do so much underexposed that everything is hidden. And suppose one day you want to really brighten this image up. Say you want to really brighten it and bring more light. And say you do that, but you don't have enough data because you were so much into, say you want to do this. For some strange reason, that's your style or that's what you want to do. You have all this information. So that is what it's important, that what is that information you're documenting. So you're marrying here, when you're photographing, keep in mind, you're going to do editing. You're going to develop that image in Photoshop. So how much data can I record, still maintaining the story? You don't start with a bright picture and go make it moody. You're still doing it moody. You're still doing what you're doing, but a little less than what you would do, what the final image is, because you're going to do the finishing touch in Photoshop. So again, the way you can narrate your stories and the same picture, edit it 5 ways, right?
Yeah.
So
quick question. Yeah, one about this image and some of your others. Cody asked if you spray the fruit with water or do you use like a mixture of something?
Just water.
Okay.
So I have a spray bottle, and just before I shoot, just spray it with water, because everything in my set can be eaten after it's been shot. Everything in my set is edible. I like to use things that are edible, not throw it away. It just make it real and how it is in real life, but just making ordinary things look like extraordinary with photography. So keeping it real. Yeah. Any other questions anyone has?
Nothing right now, but I'll let you know. And we have about 25 minutes left.
Okay, perfect. I think we should be good. So now I'm going to do an image that has a little bit of clutter. So I shot this for my Adobe Stock because working in the kitchen is always a very popular image. Here are a pair of mother and daughter, and she's a very good friend of mine, and they're just cooking. They were cooking lunch for me in the kitchen, and I was like, okay, let's get the camera rolling. So now I see some bottles here, some clutter here, and how do I really work with all that, clean it up, at the same time make the image look a little, more realistic and beautiful. I love all this that's happening here because there's action here and here as well. So here could be another example of photo stacking, and which I also did, but I'm not going to repeat that because already done photo stacking here. So I shot one where this is in focus, the other one I shot where this is in focus. And then you can just merge them both in Photoshop, like we did for the light image. Now here, when you open it, I'm supposed to open it in Camera Raw, but that's fine. We can always go back to it. First, let me just, deal with these things because that's the one that's bothering me the most. So I go here and I say spot heal. And here your, patient skills pays most because it's you can't go like Blatch because it's going to pick up data from here and start doing it. So you really reduce the brush size, like tiny, tiny, and you start working. You really reduce the brush size and you start working tiny spots. See that? Right. And sometimes you just have to repeat. Keep doing it. Less is more. So here you go. And don't worry about the blotches here. We'll fix that. Let's fix her hand first. And then this bottle here, because it's, to keep working on it. So here you go. And I know it's sloppy. We're going to fix that. Because anything with brand names, even if it's blurry, because sometimes even the color is a copyright, we can't really submit it to stock. Now you see here, it's somewhat clear, not really. And I'm going to even remove this orange here. And we're going to work on it. And I think this is just remove the top part. Sometimes you have to go over, and that's where, I tell my, it's trial and error. You have to learn I keep doing it. I like that. Now I'm going to take another layer and say paint. Now I'm going to take black color paint and paint on it. what if I was an artist, you know, I would do that. So I would pick this color, black, from here, not, you know, not pitch black. So whatever the color is here, I take the same color, then take the brush. I don't like opacity to be 100, maybe 60, and then just go over it. So you're literally removing the clutter, and you'll be surprised. You can keep going with the spot healing, but not required. And now you go here, it's a blur, take a curve so that it looks like, you know, you're not cutting off that bowl there. See?
Yeah, that's perfect.
So you play with it now. Now there's this guy here. This can also be removed, or just paint it. And here I'm just gonna, you know, do this. So many ways to do one task. Because it's all blurred.
Yeah, the blur helps so much.
The blur helps so much, yeah.
Do you ever use clone stamp, or are you mostly using healing brush?
Mostly using healing brush.
Okay.
I don't know, I've never been, you know, I've never fallen in love with a clone stamp. I don't know why. It's always the healing brush for me, because I don't know, just, I think just doing it for years and years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I also managed to clean this up. So I'll just add a little more, you know, a little more black right here, reduce the opacity a little more so that it doesn't look like a, that's it. Now you really feel it's clean and nice. I love that. Anyway, we are doing spot healing and cleaning up. I don't know what is here. I don't remember. Remove that. Eye on details. Yeah. Now, when we did that, now the next one, I really like the way the light is falling, but I think it's not doing much to the image. So let's just create some light effects. So again, you can use dodge, you can use burn, you can go back and brush it in Photoshop, in Camera Raw. Since we have done so much of dodge, let's just take it back to Camera Raw filter. And here, the good thing is we already have these strokes of light to show us where the light is coming from. So I'm going to mask it and just bring it more to life. And then probably a little more light. No, that's not something. Yeah, that's perfect. A little more light to her hair. That's it. Now, I love this. And then use the brush, reduce the opacity. Again, new layer, and say brush. And we can even use liquify here, but she's not the main focus. It's not a portraiture. So a little bit of color there, and then that looks much better. That's it.
So good.
So we started here, all this clutter, beautiful image. How do we salvage it? Because this is real life images, you know, sometimes it happens, you're not cleaning up and or you don't have the time and the moment is going to go away. So that's where you know what you're doing then. You know how you are, you know, going to use Photoshop and do this. If there's something really huge red here, I would have removed it before I took the picture. So I'll do a quick recap and then I'll do another photo stacking just to show you how I use it for focus. And then I think that should be good.
Okay.
For today. So we started with the spice image. Here, I think we did another spice image before this, the onion and the garlic. I can't find it. Maybe I closed that one. We did this. We darkened it here. We created deep shadows. We popped the color. We added a little more texture in the turmeric. Then here we didn't do much. We just popped the, the flower that she is sieving by adding texture here. Here we did quite a bit, and we created almost like a painterly effect, reduced the saturation at first, added a lot of shadows, added light, and just played around with it as a painting. We did photo stacking here. We took 2 images and we just wanted to make it look festive. So we added a lot of bokeh behind. Then again, still life painterly kind of image, make it really moody or kind of moody. So we did both the options here. And then we had so much clutter going on in this picture that we, managed to clean up and still keep the realism of it. Still have some things here, and there's this little bowl here, and still have that realism of a real kitchen.
Yeah,
that's what most stocks images are wanting, is like that played realism, I call it, where it's real, but it's kind of manufactured realism, where you clean up a little bit, but it's still a real kitchen and everything action is going on. So now I have 2 images that will stack again. This is an image of spice and onion, and I'll explain why we want to do it. And first I'll open the first one, and we can work on it. We have, I think, 10 more minutes, so that should be good for this, because we're not going to do a whole lot of edit. Now in this image, this is nice and sharp and focused, but when you go down to the spice, kind of like blurred. So when you're doing multiple layers like this, I like to use focus stacking, because then everything is nice, clean, and you have a good, good image. So again, you can increase the exposure a bit, bring in more shadows. I'll bring in more shadows later, mask it, and you can even do like a linear, I don't want to do a linear gradient. I want to do a radial gradient. So say you do a radial gradient, this is something new here. Now you can add light in this area only, and all this can be nice and dark. You do that, or you can take another one, radial gradient, and you can do the reverse. You can do the little inverse button here, invert. So now the outside will be nice, you can darken it. So now the outside is nice and dark, inside stays how it was shot. That's a very nice tool. I love that tool.
Yeah, one of the best.
Yes. So here you go. You already played with the light. Now that's one image. Of course, that's the glaring line. You can always remove it with spot healing or crop the picture. And then this is also tilted. We'll fix that as well. Just use the crop tool. Here we call it straighten it, and use the crop tool, turn it a bit. It's really important to have these details come alive, because that's what makes the image, pop. And then I'm going to open, just being mindful of the time, I'm going to open the second image here, which we are stacking. Now, if you see the second image, you really see the spices stack sharp. Here you go, all the spices. Now you see here how the onion is blurred.
Yeah.
So again, let's use the radial filter here. And that's it. A little bit of light, a little bit of color, a little bit of texture. And then we open it. So now you have 2 images. One is where the onion is blurred, and the other where the spices are blurred. So say you take the one where the spices are nice and bright, and you drag the onion. You can do it two ways. Way one is take this tool, the lasso tool or the quick selection tool, and you select this portion. Let's try that. We call it quick selection. There's so many ways of stacking pictures as well. And then I'm going to go here. I'm going to just press my left mouse button and select this tool. Okay. And you can take a little more than the image, and then we can mask it. Okay, perfect, right? And then I'd right click and say layer via. Either you can use layer via copy or layer via cut. Did layer via cut, minimize this. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Hold on. Where did it go? Here it is. Now I hide the other layers. What does it happen? You have just this showing, right? Now use the drag tool and bring it here. How perfect is that?
So good.
And then, because everything else is fine for me. So now what you do, take this, mask it. And now you go into now that's when your eye to detail, because this was from the previous picture, you need to remove that. You go into, you make the opacity 100 because you don't want anything from that backdrop, and you mask it. So the back of it starts to show. Now, see that? Even though the box is not like perfectly aligned, you can't even tell. So that's another way of photo stacking. Or you could also bring in the whole picture in here, the whole thing. This, stack it on it. Second way of doing it, and mask it and just go over it like that. This, that's the second way of doing it. I like the first way because you're just like targeting it. You're not doing additional work here. That's the reason I like that.
Yeah.
So here you go.
Question for you from the chat. Are you using a mouse or a tablet?
I'm using a mouse.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm still pretty old-fashioned, and
Me too.
I do have a tablet. I don't know why. I do have a Wacom here. For some reason, I've never gotten used to it.
Me either. I'm the same way. I love using a mouse. I do all my Photoshop composites with a mouse, and everyone is like, "Are you crazy?" But I can't use the Wacom tablet. It just doesn't work for me.
Just doesn't work. I have the pen, and I'm like, no, I'm good with the mouse.
Yeah.
So there's just two ways of doing the same thing. So again, there are so many ways to do the picture the same way. There really is not one way or the right way to do it. It's just so much. I think a lifetime is short to understand all the aspects of Photoshop. It's just so many aspects. A portrait photographer will use a completely different tool set than what a food photographer would, or a landscape would. So play around, learning, what you have, and stick with those like 10 brushes or the 10 tools you have, and then, hone on that and then move to the next.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really good advice. This looks so good.
Yeah, so now you have this sharp, unlike how it was. You stack them, and just pretty simple, nothing too fancy.
Yeah, I love it. All of them turned out so good.
Thanks, Anne.
Yeah. We have a tiny bit of time left.
Yes.
Like maybe 5 minutes, looking at the clock, like. So is there any last tips that you have? Anything that you want to share with everyone? Something for them to keep in mind? Any parting words of wisdom?
I'll just say, don't get intimidated by your tools, whether it's a camera, whether it's a Photoshop, because it has 1,000 knobs. To start with one thing at a time. And I'm self-taught myself, whether it's Photoshop or, photography, and just small steps every single day, consistent small step helps. Growing is, I think, more important than getting there. So that's the fun part of the journey. Not an expert at all in Photoshop. There's so much for me to learn, explore. I'm constantly looking at YouTube, learning from everyone else. And there's so much out there that's available to us that we can use. And I'm constantly learning something or the other. And sometimes if you don't practice it with Photoshop, I know one thing, that if you don't practice it, you don't remember it. It's not that easy. It's a little complicated. So that's why just create a package for yourself. 5, 6 tools, stick with those. And then we have perfected and you've cemented into your brain. And even in the middle of the night, if someone wakes you up and says, what is burn? You can answer that. Move on to the next 10.
Yeah.
That's how I did it. So yeah.
That is such a great tip. I love that. Awesome. Well, yeah, I'll just give a few remarks here. Thank you for everyone who joined us today, and be sure to come back tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time for part 2. And what are we going to be working on tomorrow?
So tomorrow we'll do light. Today was Moody and Painterly. Tomorrow, so I call it like my oil painting collection, which is, rich colors, dark and moody. Tomorrow it's going to be light, airy, summery kind of images. Wow. Like there will be a drink there tomorrow and just picnic shots and things like that.
That sounds great. And all in Photoshop again, right?
Yes, all in Photoshop. And probably we will cap it off with an image where we create the backdrop in Photoshop and just have fun and play with it.
Awesome. That sounds so good. I'm very excited for that. And everyone in the chat, let us know if you have any other final questions here before we hop off. And just a reminder to everyone that there is a new week of Photoshop daily creative challenges with Paul Tranny every weekday at 9 a.m. Pacific. So be sure to check those out. Super good way to increase your skills and learn something new and create some really nice pieces. And then coming up after this, we have the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge with Andrew Hotchroddle, and that's a great way to learn as well, followed by branding identity design with Monograph & Co. So lots of good things coming up for you today and every day. Be sure to come back and come over to behance.net/Adobe Live to join in on everything. Thank you all of you for joining us today. Thank you, Simi. This was really amazing, very informative. And we will see you all tomorrow for day 2. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow.